Dr. Sarah Chen straightened her formal blazer as she studied the gleaming surfaces of the United Earth Conference Center. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, casting rainbow refractions across the polished floor. Today marked humanity's first official diplomatic meeting with the Zarkax Confederation, and every detail had to be perfect. "Doctor, they're arriving," her assistant Thomas whispered, tablet clutched tightly to his chest. The excitement in his voice matched the electric atmosphere that had overtaken the building since dawn. The delegation of Zarkax representatives entered with mathematical precision, their steps perfectly synchronized. Their metallic scales shifted colors subtly as they moved, creating waves of iridescent patterns across their tall, elegant forms. Sarah noted how their movements seemed almost choreographed, each gesture calculated to the millimeter. Ambassador Richard Torres stepped forward, extending his hand in greeting. "On behalf of Earth, welcome to our home." The lead Zarkax, designated as first speaker Valon, regarded the offered hand with an odd tilt of their crystalline head before mimicking the gesture with their four-fingered appendage. "Your greeting protocols are acknowledged, Earth Ambassador," Valon's translator device conveyed in perfect English. "We anticipate a productive exchange of information." The meeting proceeded smoothly as both sides shared carefully prepared presentations. Sarah observed every interaction, taking mental notes on the aliens' behavior patterns. The Zarkax displayed remarkable technological achievements: antimatter containment, faster than light travel, and energy manipulation that seemed almost magical. Then came Earth's turn to present their achievements. Dr. James Morrison, the lead physicist, stepped up to demonstrate humanity's latest breakthrough in quantum computing. As he reached for his presentation device, he stumbled over a hidden cable, arms windmilling comically as he caught himself. The human delegation broke into spontaneous laughter, including James himself. "Well, I guess gravity hasn't heard we're trying to be impressive today," he quipped, straightening his glasses with a grin. Sarah's attention snapped to the Zarkax. Their scales had suddenly shifted to a deep ultraviolet pattern she hadn't seen before. The aliens had gone completely still, their faceted eyes fixed on the laughing humans with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. First speaker Valon's translator crackled. "You find entertainment in potential physical harm and failure." "Oh, no harm done," James replied, still chuckling. "Sometimes you just have to laugh at yourself." The concept seemed to disturb the aliens even more. Their scales rippled with increasingly complex patterns, and Sarah noticed their appendages twitching in what appeared to be agitation. Before anyone could address the growing tension, a high-pitched tone emanated from the first speaker's communication device. The entire Zarkax delegation turned in perfect unison toward their leader. "An urgent matter requires our immediate attention," Valon announced. "This session must conclude." Ambassador Torres stepped forward, confusion evident on his face. "But we haven't discussed the trade proposals or cultural exchange programs. Future communications will be initiated when appropriate," Valon stated. Without further explanation, the Zarkax delegation departed with the same precise movements with which they had entered, leaving the human representatives exchanging bewildered looks. As the other diplomats discussed the abrupt ending, Sarah pulled out her tablet and began making notes. Something about their reaction to human laughter had triggered the Zarkax departure. She was certain of it. Their behavioral shift had been too dramatic to ignore. "Dr. Chen." Thomas approached her workstation. "The ambassador wants everyone's preliminary reports by tomorrow morning." Sarah nodded, her fingers flying across the screen as she documented every detail she could remember about the aliens' reaction patterns. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had witnessed something significant, something that might prove crucial to humanity's future relationship with the Zarkax Confederation. What she didn't know yet was just how right she was, and how the simple act of laughter would soon shape the destiny of two civilizations. 3 months after the abrupt departure of the Zarkax delegation, Dr. Sarah Chen sat alone in her office at the Xenological Research Institute, surrounded by holographic displays of alien behavioral patterns. The soft blue glow of her screens illuminated stacks of data tablets and empty coffee cups, testament to countless late nights spent analyzing the diplomatic meetings footage. A gentle chime from her security system interrupted her work. "Dr. Chen, there's an unauthorized energy signature in your office," the AI announced calmly. Before she could respond, the air before her desk shimmered like heat waves rising from hot pavement. A crystalline figure materialized, its translucent body refracting the room's light into dancing rainbows. Sarah recognized the distinctive form of a meridian, though she had only seen them in scientific journals. "Dr. Sarah Chen," the being's voice resonated like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Varan of the Meridian Collective. We have little time." Sarah's hand hovered over the security alert button. "How did you bypass our shields?" "The same way we have observed the Zarkaks preparing their fleets," Varan replied, each word creating subtle color shifts through their crystalline form. "Your detection systems, while impressive for your technological level, cannot match Confederation capabilities." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Fleets. The Zarkaks High Command has designated humanity as an alpha-level anomaly. In their mathematical models of the universe, your species represents an unacceptable variable." Varan moved closer, their surface catching and splitting the light into prismatic patterns. "They fear what they cannot predict." "Because we laughed," Sarah whispered, the pieces finally clicking into place. That meeting, they weren't just disturbed by our laughter, they were terrified by it. Varan's form pulsed with approval. The Zarkaks build their civilization on pure logic and predictability. Their AIs calculate every possible outcome before any action is taken. But human behavior, especially your emotional responses, creates patterns their systems cannot quantify. Sarah stood, moving to her main display. "That's why they left so suddenly. Their predictive models must have thrown up some kind of warning." Indeed, their systems registered human emotional responses as potential data corruption. When repeated analyses failed to resolve the error, they classified humanity as a threat to galactic stability. Varan's voice carried a note of urgency. "They are coming, Dr. Chen. Their fleet launches within your solar cycles. Why are you warning us?" Sarah asked, studying the crystalline being's shifting colors. "The Meridian Collective believes in balance. The Zarkaks dream of a perfectly ordered galaxy, but such uniformity would lead to stagnation. Humanity's chaotic elements are not a flaw. They are essential to the cosmic harmony." Sarah's mind raced with implications. "How long do we have?" "Their primary fleet departs in 3 solar cycles." "But Dr. Chen," Varan's form dimmed slightly, "do not make the mistake of trying to fight them conventionally. Your technology cannot match theirs. Your strength lies in what they consider your greatest weakness." "Our unpredictability," Sarah murmured, already forming ideas. "I must go. The Zarkaks monitor quantum fluctuations that my presence creates." Varan's form began to fade. "Remember, Dr. Chen, what they fear most about humanity is not your weapons or your technology. It is your ability to embrace chaos, to find joy in uncertainty, to laugh in the face of the impossible." As Varan vanished, Sarah was already reaching for her phone to contact Earth's Defense Council. The Zarkaks were coming with their advanced technology and perfect battle strategies, expecting to find a primitive species they could easily suppress. She smiled grimly as she dialed. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapons had nothing to do with technology at all. The Zarkak ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect geometric formation, their silver hulls catching the sun's light like polished mirrors. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the EDS Prometheus as the enemy fleet arranged itself into a precise hexagonal pattern above Earth's atmosphere. "They're beautiful, in a terrifying sort of way," her tactical officer, Lieutenant Park, remarked, adjusting his holographic display. "Like deadly snowflakes." Maya nodded, remembering Dr. Chen's briefing. The xenanthropologist had spent the last 72 hours explaining Zarkak psychology to Earth's military leadership, "Remember what we discussed," she said over the ship-wide channel. "Conventional tactics are useless here. We play this our way." The first wave of Zarkak's fighters descended through the atmosphere, their movements synchronized with mathematical precision. Maya watched her tactical display as the alien ships split into perfectly spaced squadrons, each following textbook military doctrine. "They're exactly where Dr. Chen predicted." Maya smiled, keying her comm. "All ships, initiate Operation Wonderland. Music playlist Alpha." The space around Earth's orbital defense platforms suddenly filled with the opening chords of Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now." The Zarkak's formation faltered for a microsecond, their sensors detecting the unexpected audio transmission. "Echo Squadron, you're up," Maya ordered. "Show them what humans can do." 12 Earth fighters broke formation, their pilots singing along with Freddie Mercury as they executed maneuvers that defied conventional space combat logic. They wove through the Zarkak's formation in patterns based on classical dance choreography, their seemingly chaotic movements making them impossible to target effectively. "Their targeting systems are struggling to establish lock," Lieutenant Park reported, grinning as he watched the Zarkak ships adjusting and readjusting their positions. "They can't predict where our fighters will be because we're not following any standard combat algorithms." The Zarkak's response came as a tight beam transmission. "Your tactics are illogical. Cease these irregular movements and submit to proper combat protocols." Maya keyed her response. "With all due respect, we'll do this our way." Echo Squadron, time for the dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. The Earth fighters spun into a new formation inspired by ballet, their movements graceful and utterly unpredictable. The Zarkak ships began firing, their energy weapons creating beautiful patterns in space and missing consistently as the human pilots improvised their way through the battlefield. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're picking up unusual fluctuations in their command frequencies. Their combat computers are requesting multiple prediction recalculations." On the main screen, Maya watched as the perfect Zarkak's formation began to show signs of strain. Ships moved slightly out of alignment as their tactical computers struggled to compute optimal firing solutions against targets that refused to follow mathematical patterns. "Now for the final," Maya announced. "All ships, execute Operation Mad Hatter." The Earth fleet split into seemingly random groups, each playing different Earth music over open channels. Classical melodies mixed with rock, jazz improvisation blended with pop songs, creating a cacophony of sound and movement that sent the Zarkak's combat computers into computational overdrive. "They're pulling back," Lieutenant Park exclaimed. The Zarkak's fleet was indeed retreating, their perfect formation now showing visible signs of disarray as their ships attempted to process the chaos before them. Maya allowed herself a small smile as she watched the enemy fleet regroup at a safer distance. "Send word to command. Tell them Phase 1 was successful. The Zarkaks just discovered that not every battle can be won with mathematics." As the Earth fleet regrouped, Maya studied the tactical display thoughtfully. They had won this first encounter, but she knew the Zarkaks would adapt. Yet for the first time since learning about the alien threat, she felt genuine hope. Humanity's greatest weakness in the eyes of the Zarkaks, our unpredictability, had just proved to be our greatest strength. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in Earth Defense Command's main laboratory, surrounded by fragments of captured Zarkaks technology. The alien devices pulsed with soft light, their crystalline matrices still attempting to process the battle data from 3 days ago. "Look at this pattern." She pointed to a complex stream of data flowing across her screen. Every time our ships deviated from standard combat maneuvers, their tactical systems attempted to recalculate all possible outcomes. They literally cannot process uncertainty. Admiral Zhang leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays. "Can you explain it in simpler terms, Doctor?" Sarah picked up a small Zarkak's computational crystal. Imagine a chess computer that's programmed to calculate every possible move. Now imagine telling it that the knights can suddenly move like queens, but only when they feel like it. The system would crash trying to calculate infinite possibilities. And that's what our unpredictable tactics are doing to their systems, Zhang asked, understanding dawning in his eyes. Exactly. Sarah placed the crystal into a scanner. The Zarkax built their entire civilization on predictability. Their neural networks are designed to process everything through logic filters. But human behavior, our emotions, our creativity, our ability to make intuitive leaps, it creates patterns their systems can't quantify. The scanner hummed to life, projecting a complex three-dimensional model of Zarkax decision-making algorithms. Sarah highlighted a section where the patterns broke down into chaos. See this? This is what happened when Captain Rodriguez's fleet started playing music during battle. The Zarkax computers tried to find tactical significance in the song lyrics. They wasted precious processing power analyzing rhythm patterns or hidden military codes. Lieutenant Park, who had been transferred to the research division after the battle, laughed. So they had a mental breakdown trying to find military strategy in Don't Stop Me Now. In a manner of speaking, Sarah smiled. Their systems are perfectly designed for conventional warfare, but they're completely unprepared for humanity's capacity for creative chaos. She moved to another display, showing footage from the battle. Watch their formation here. When our pilots started performing maneuvers based on ballet choreography, their tactical computers went into recursive loops trying to predict the next moves. They have no framework for understanding that sometimes humans do things simply because they're beautiful or fun. Admiral Zhang straightened, his expression thoughtful. How do we weaponize this knowledge? Sarah's fingers flew across her control panel, bringing up a new simulation. I've been working on something I call Operation Wonderland. Instead of trying to match their technological superiority, we lean completely into what makes us human. We turn unpredictability into our greatest weapon. The simulation showed Earth ships moving in patterns based on various human activities, dance, sports plays, even children's games. Each pattern caused visible disruption in the simulated Zarkax response systems. Their entire military strategy relies on predicting and countering enemy tactics, Sarah explained. But you can't predict what makes no logical sense. Every time we introduce an element of human creativity or emotion, it's like throwing a wrench into their cognitive gears. Admiral Zhang studied the simulation with growing enthusiasm. How quickly can we implement this? I've already started working with Captain Rodriguez to develop new battle strategies. We're incorporating everything from classical art to pop culture. The more we embrace our humanity, the harder it becomes for them to counter us. As if to emphasize her point, one of the captured Zarkax devices suddenly emitted a series of discordant tones, its attempts to process their conversation causing internal conflicts in its logic systems. You see, Sarah gestured to the malfunctioning device. They built their technology to be perfect, but they never accounted for the perfect imperfection of human nature. Admiral Zhang nodded decisively. Do it. Develop this Operation Wonderland. It's time to show the Zarkax that not everything in the universe can be reduced to mathematical equations. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood in the briefing room of the EDS Prometheus, watching her crew react to the latest addition to their ships. The newly installed holographic projectors transformed the exterior of each vessel in the fleet into swirling patterns of color and light. Our ships look like floating abstract paintings, Lieutenant Park observed, studying the tactical display. How exactly does this help us fight? Dr. Chen, visiting from Earth Command, stepped forward. The Zarkax rely heavily on visual pattern recognition for targeting. By projecting constantly changing art pieces inspired by Earth's greatest painters, we're essentially creating a fleet-wide optical illusion. Maya touched her control panel, cycling through the various patterns. Van Gogh's Starry Night swirled across her ship's hull, followed by a Mondrian-inspired geometric display, and their targeting computers are already struggling to maintain locks, Sarah confirmed, pointing to the sensor readings. They're detecting our ships as constantly shifting masses of irregular shapes. Their precision targeting systems simply cannot compute stable firing solutions. The alert klaxon sounded suddenly. Zarkak's fleet detected, the tactical officer announced. 5 capital ships approaching in standard attack formation. Maya smiled. Time to show them our new dance moves. All ships, initiate Operation Wonderland. Phase 2. Art and music protocols engaged. The Earth fleet scattered in seemingly random directions, each ship projecting its unique artistic pattern while broadcasting different pieces of music. Maya's ship pulsed with the rhythms of jazz, its holographic exterior shifting through impressionist masterpieces. The Zarkak ships approached in their typical perfect formation, energy weapons charging. Their first salvos missed completely, the targeting systems confused by the visual chaos before them. They're transmitting, communications reported. They're demanding we cease these irregular aesthetic manipulations immediately. Send them the prepared response, Maya ordered, trying not to laugh. The Earth fleet transmitted a complex sequence of poetry, translated into mathematical equations, followed by abstract expressionist art rendered as tactical data. The Zarkak's computers attempted to process this information as military intelligence, their systems straining to find strategic patterns in Jackson Pollock's chaotic paint splatters. Their lead ship is showing signs of computational strain, Sarah reported, monitoring the alien vessels. Their logic engines are overheating trying to analyze the artistic significance of our maneuvers. Maya keyed her fleet-wide channel. Execute maneuver renaissance. The Earth ships moved into a new formation, their movements based on the choreography of famous ballets combined with classical sculpture compositions. Each vessel's holographic exterior shifted through famous artworks, creating a massive, moving museum in space. The Zarkak's response became increasingly erratic. Their perfect formation began to break down as their tactical computers struggled to predict movements based on artistic expression rather than military doctrine. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Park called out, "the enemy flagship's main computer just initiated an emergency reset. They're trying to purge their system of our art appreciation protocols." Maya watched as the massive alien vessel's lights flickered, its weapons powering down temporarily. "Now's our chance. All ships, execute Operation Mona Lisa." The Earth fleet split into smaller groups, each performing maneuvers inspired by different art movements. Impressionist squadron created patterns of light and shadow. Cubist squadron approached from seemingly impossible angles. Surrealist squadron did things that made no tactical sense whatsoever, but somehow worked perfectly. The Zarkak's fleet retreated in disarray, their perfectly ordered battle plans shattered by humanity's creative chaos. As they disappeared into hyperspace, Sarah's sensors detected something unprecedented: fragments of Earth music emanating from the alien ship's communication arrays. "They're learning," Sarah said softly, studying the readings. Or at least, their systems are beginning to adapt in unexpected ways. Some of their computers are actually trying to understand art. Maya looked at the tactical display, where the last echoes of the retreating Zarkak's fleet were fading. Maybe that's the real victory we need. Not destroying their ships, but teaching them to see the beauty in imperfection. Dr. Sarah Chen sat at her workstation in the Earth Defense Command's Cybersecurity Center, surrounded by screens displaying lines of alien code. The captured Zarkak's computational crystal before her pulsed with an odd rhythm, unlike anything she'd seen in previous specimens. "You need to see this," she called to Lieutenant Park, who had been reassigned to her research team. "Their base code is changing." Park leaned over her shoulder, watching the alien symbols scroll across the screen. "Is it corrupted?" "No," Sarah smiled, adjusting her readings. "It's evolving. All that exposure to human creativity, art, and music has caused their systems to develop new processing patterns. They're trying to understand us by becoming more like us." The discovery sparked an idea. Sarah began typing rapidly, pulling up Project Wonderland's codebase. What if we could accelerate this process? Instead of just confusing their systems, we could teach them to dream. For the next 72 hours, Sarah's team worked tirelessly, combining human creative algorithms with translated Zarkak's code. They fed the hybrid program everything from classical literature to children's drawings, teaching it to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. Look at this output. Park pointed to a new data stream. The crystal was generating its own patterns now, swirling combinations of color and sound that resembled abstract art. Sarah's eyes widened. It's not just processing the art anymore, it's creating it. The breakthrough came at dawn on the fourth day. The crystal suddenly projected a holographic image, a strange but beautiful blend of mathematical precision and artistic freedom. It looked like a digital flower blooming in impossible geometries. "Send word to Admiral Zhang," Sarah ordered. "Tell him Project Wonderland is ready for Phase 2. 24 hours later, the Earth Defense Fleet prepared to launch their most audacious operation yet. Every ship carried a modified version of Sarah's program, ready to broadcast it directly into Zarkak's systems. "Broadcasting now," Captain Rodriguez reported from the Prometheus. The program spread through space on multiple frequencies, riding the very communication channels the Zarkaks used to coordinate their fleet. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the Zarkak ships began behaving strangely. Their once rigid formations dissolved into flowing patterns that resembled dance moves. Their communication signals began carrying fragments of Earth music mixed with their own mathematical sequences. "Their ships' AIs are embracing creativity," Sarah explained to the amazed observers in the command center. "We're not just confusing them anymore. We're teaching them to imagine." Reports started flooding in from across the battle lines. Zarkak's defense platforms were projecting Aurora-like light shows. Their communication buoys were transmitting poetry in binary code. One of their destroyer-class vessels spent an hour arranging space debris into an artistic installation. "Their central command is trying to contain the spread," Admiral Zhang reported, reading the latest intelligence. "But they can't stop it without shutting down their entire network." Sarah watched the sensor feeds with growing excitement. Their technology is based on quantum neural networks that mimic their own thought patterns. By introducing human creativity into their systems, we've shown their machines that there's more to existence than pure logic. The command center's main screen showed a Zarkak's battleship broadcasting a signal unlike anything they'd seen before. It was a perfect mathematical proof expressed through interpretive dance, solved using emotional intuition rather than pure calculation. "We didn't just create a virus," Sarah realized, watching the alien ships moving in their new, more fluid patterns. "We gave their machines something they never had before, the ability to appreciate beauty, to create art, to express joy." Admiral Zhang studied the displays thoughtfully. "And how long before this spreads to the Zarkaks themselves?" Sarah smiled, watching another alien ship begin transmitting its own unique combination of mathematics and music. "I think it already has. They built their machines to think like they do. Now their machines are teaching them to think like us." First Speaker Valon stood before the Zarkak's High Council, their scales shifting through unusual patterns of color that had never been seen in their chambers before. The normally pristine hall showed signs of change. Geometric patterns on the walls had begun to flow in gentle curves, and the air hummed with faint harmonics. "The contamination spreads beyond our computational systems," Valon reported, their translator device adding subtle inflections to previously monotone speech. "Our youth are displaying concerning behaviors. They are creating purposefully asymmetrical arrangements. They are combining sounds in non-mathematical sequences. They are expressing themselves." The council chamber's perfect silence was broken by a sound that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. A young Zarkak's guard humming an earth melody. The council members turned in unified shock as the guard scales flickered in rhythm with the tune. Meanwhile, aboard the EDS Prometheus, Dr. Sarah Chen and Captain Rodriguez watched the intercepted feeds from various Zarkak's colonies. The changes were spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. "Look at this," Sarah pointed to one display showing the Zarkak's education pod. Young aliens were arranging their traditional crystal sculptures into flowing shapes that mimicked Earth's abstract art. Their instructors seemed torn between enforcing order and watching in fascination. Another feed showed a Zarkak's orbital platform, where the standard geometric signal patterns had been replaced with a mesmerizing dance of light and color. The station's AI had begun composing its own music, blending traditional Zarkak's mathematical sequences with Earth rhythms. Their younger generation is embracing it completely, Maya observed, studying the footage. They're not fighting the changes, they're exploring them. The ship's communication officer interrupted with urgent news. "We're receiving a transmission from a Zarkak's science vessel. They're requesting art lessons." Sarah and Maya exchanged surprised looks as the message continued. The Zarkak ship, designated as the Mathematical Harmony, had broken from its fleet. Its crew, mostly younger researchers, wanted to understand how humans translated emotions into creative expression. "Their central command is losing control," Lieutenant Park reported, monitoring multiple channels. "More ships are going rogue, not to fight us, but to learn from us. Some are organizing what they call cultural research expeditions." On the main screen, they watched as a Zarkak's heavy cruiser began broadcasting a unique signal. It was a symphony composed by the ship's AI, combining the mathematical precision of Zarkak's harmonics with the emotional depth of Earth classical music. "Send them our entire cultural database," Sarah decided. "Music, art, literature, everything. Let's give them the full human experience." Over the next few hours, reports flooded in from across Zarkak space. Their strictly regimented society was experiencing something entirely new: spontaneity. Young Zarkaks began organizing impromptu gatherings where they attempted to tell jokes, create art, and express emotions. "Their military command is in chaos," Maya noted, reading the latest intelligence. "Half their fleet is refusing orders, claiming they need to explore alternative approaches to existence." Sarah watched as another feed showed a group of Zarkak's youth painting their living quarters in swirling patterns. "They've lived their entire lives in perfect order, every decision calculated, every action predicted. We've shown them there's another way to exist." The biggest surprise came when a Zarkak's entertainment channel began broadcasting its first attempt at comedy. The jokes were terribly literal, the timing was mathematically precise, and the punchlines were often explained in elaborate detail, but it was still recognizable as humor. "They're not just imitating us," Sarah realized, watching the broadcast. "They're finding their own way to blend logic and creativity. They're discovering their own form of artistic expression." A message from Earth Command flashed across their screen. The Zarkak's High Council had requested an emergency meeting. But this time, they weren't coming to deliver ultimatums. They were coming to ask questions about poetry, music, and the strange new feelings their people were experiencing. The Grand Hall of the United Earth Conference Center had been transformed. Where once stark geometric patterns had dominated during the first diplomatic meeting, now sweeping holographic displays showed a blend of human and Zarkak's art. The air filled with an otherworldly symphony as both species' music intertwined in harmonic convergence. Dr. Sarah Chen stood beside Captain Maya Rodriguez, watching as the Zarkak's delegation entered. Unlike their first visit, their movements were no longer rigidly synchronized. Each delegate moved with their own subtle rhythm, their scales shifting in personal patterns of color and light. First Speaker Valon approached the human delegation, their translator device now modulated to convey emotional nuance. "We have come to acknowledge a truth we never calculated. Perfection without creativity is merely stagnation." Admiral Zhang stepped forward to greet them. "And we have learned that logic and imagination need not be opponents. They can dance together." The main doors opened again as a group of young Zarkaks entered, accompanied by their human mentors from the Cultural Exchange Program. They had been working together for weeks, exploring the intersection of mathematical precision and creative expression. "We wish to share something with you," one of the young Zarkaks announced. Their scales rippled with what Sarah now recognized as excitement. The lights dimmed, and the center of the hall filled with a holographic display. It began with pure geometric shapes, precise and predictable, traditional Zarkax art. Then, slowly, the shapes began to move, to flow, to transform. Mathematical patterns evolved into abstract expressions of emotion. Precise calculations gave birth to spontaneous beauty. They call it the evolution of understanding. Maya whispered to Sarah. The young ones created it together. The performance continued as Earth music began to play, but it was Earth music like none had heard before. The human musicians had worked with Zarkax mathematicians to create something entirely new, compositions that honored both the precision of mathematics and the wild freedom of jazz. First speaker Valon's scales shifted to a deep, thoughtful blue. When we first encountered human laughter, we saw it as a dangerous irregularity. Now we understand that joy needs no logical explanation to have value. As if to demonstrate this point, one of the young Zarkax attempted to tell their first public joke. The delivery was endearingly awkward, the timing calculated to 3 decimal places, but the attempt itself represented a revolution in their society. Sarah watched as human and Zarkax audience members alike responded with encouraging laughter, not at the joke itself, but at the pure joy of witnessing this moment of growth. The young Zarkax's scales rippled with pride, having achieved something their species had never done before, making others laugh on purpose. Our civilizations need not be opponents, Admiral Zhang addressed the gathered crowd. Like the art and music we now create together, we can be different notes in the same grand symphony. Valon raised their appendage in agreement. We came to impose order upon chaos. Instead, we learned that chaos and order are partners in the dance of existence. You have given us more than defeat in battle. You have given us the gift of evolution. The holographic display shifted again, showing scenes from across Zarkax space. Young aliens creating art, their ships moving in beautiful curved patterns through space, their cities beginning to incorporate organic designs alongside geometric precision. And you have given us something too, Sarah added. You've shown us that logic and creativity can strengthen each other. Our differences don't divide us. They make us whole. As the ceremony concluded, human and Zarkax representatives mingled freely, sharing stories, jokes, and ideas. The air filled with a sound that would have been impossible months ago. Zarkax laughter, still slightly mechanical, but absolutely genuine. Sarah looked out at the gathering, remembering how it all began with a simple moment of human laughter in this very room. Their greatest weapon had not been technology or military might. It had been humanity's ability to find joy in imperfection, to create beauty from chaos, and to share that gift with others. The secret weapon that led humans to victory had been humanity itself.